Afternoon. We're going to talk about two cases today, or several cases, but the one thing I want to make sure is that things come across, that words have meaning, actions have meaning, and it doesn't matter what excuses come up afterwards. It matters what happened at the time that the incident occurred, and what it's done to our community, and what it does to individuals. And when you talk about the criminal justice system, the people who are sadly most forgotten are the victims of crime. And you always have to put yourself in their shoes. How did they feel at that time? And how did it impact them afterwards? So we're going to start with this video, and what I ask you to do is put yourself in the shoes of this 9-year-old little girl. See her walking on the top of the screen right now. I'm going to play it back because I think when you talk about it, it's a 9-year-old little girl, typical little girl walking home from school. She, not care. However, she sees across the street, she sees two individuals. They're looking at her, they're staring. She's starting to get a little nervous. As she starts, you see her cut through these bushes because these boys, these teens, start coming towards her. She cuts through. They cross the street. They were staring at her. They cross the street. You see her go between the bushes, and you see her take off running. Now you see these two individuals. He's coming across the street. He's actually videotaping it. He goes into a full-out sprint towards that girl. Picture that. That's your little girl. That's your daughter. That's your sister. Scared to death because a typical walking home from school, you have two individuals across the street who are staring at her. She doesn't know who they are. They stared at her. She kind of goes, oh my gosh, I gotta get out of this situation. Her heart starts pounding. She gets upset. She turns the corner, says, I'm gonna cut through these bushes. Hopefully they leave me alone. She's probably praying to herself, dear God, I hope they leave me alone. She turns the corner. One starts coming at her full speed as she's starting to dart across the grass in between these bushes, in between the houses, and the other one's videotaping it. That doesn't make you a little upset? You're not putting yourself in the shoes of that victim. You're not thinking about what that little girl went through. So, I had these scripted notes, it doesn't really matter. What happened was, that little girl from there, she runs to a neighbor's house, as we talked about the other day. At the neighbor's house, she thought she was gonna be rescued. She thought, oh my gosh, I know who this neighbor is, I'm gonna get to that house, and at that point, I'm gonna get inside. It's gonna be safe. It's like, little kids are used to playing tag. I'm gonna be on base and everything, the world's gonna be fine. This girl wasn't playing tag. She was in fear for her life. She was in fear these two individuals were going to do something to her. She has no idea. They're strangers. She gets to that house. Nobody answers. She's scared. She runs, makes it to her own house. She sets off the alarm, notifies her mom. Her mom notifies law enforcement. We get sent out there. You talk about a smart little girl. This girl, she's brave. She's smart. But at the same time, never forget what it went through. That little girl, for the rest of her life, this is going to stick with her. You think she's going to be able to go home the next couple of days, a couple of weeks of school that are left, and walk the same way and everything's going to be fine? No. You think next year this is going to stick in her mind? And no matter what I tell you what's going to be coming up next and what these people who are involved say about it, it doesn't matter what they say now. What matters is what happened at that time. And what happened at that time is they scared this little girl to death. She thought there was clear and imminent danger to herself. She was scared to death they were going to do something. That's not going to be tolerated in Pasco County, I promise you that. So as we went through the investigation yesterday, we spoke to several individuals that were juveniles. The one individual we wanted to talk to, his name was Drew Bretnell. He's 18 years of age. He's an adult. He says to us, he was the one who was coming across the street filming this whole thing. He filmed his friend running full speed at a little girl, having her petrified and scared to death. He stated to us he was recreating a Japanese anime, I don't know how to pronounce it, and where they fly with their arms back. That ain't a defense. If you're 18 years old, you're an adult. We got 18-year-olds that are leaving off to college, or 18-year-olds starting their careers, or 18 years old sacrificing their lives going overseas to defend our liberty and what America stands for. And we got this moron standing out there creating a Japanese anime, whatever it's called, because he thinks that's what gets his kicks off. They stated later on, they knew at the time, this is what they tell their friends later on, they knew at the time the girl was traumatized. They said, yeah, we knew this girl was upset, this 9-year-old, yeah, we know she was scared. But they didn't do anything about it. At that time, they never went back and said, hey, you know what, this is bad, we upset this girl, we never meant to, let's try to figure out a way. They saw, that deputies were rolling up on scene. They could have went up at that time and said, hey guys, this is all a joke. We didn't mean to do this is all a joke. They didn't do that. They waited until we got in front of the cameras. They waited until we got out there and knocked on the doors. They waited until we found out where they were to say, hey, no, this is, we didn't mean to do that. This is all a joke. It wasn't until, even the girlfriend, I think it was Drew's girlfriend, gets on our social media and says, this is all a big misunderstanding. I'm sorry, was it a misunderstanding for that little girl when she was running across for her life? It absolutely wasn't. People have to be held accountable for their actions. There has to be consequences. I get it. Those parents are going to say, oh, we overreacted. No, you don't overreact. When we're dealing with a situation, we're dealing with an investigation. We wanted to find out the facts. And I get it. Parents will defend their kids all the time. We deal with it every day. We arrest people all the time and their parents defend them. I understand that. As parents, that's your first reaction is defend your kids. But at the same time, when you hear all the facts, I believe 99.99% of citizens out there are going to realize that little girl is in fear for her life. And this 18-year-old who's thinking about his future was out there terrorizing a little girl. And that's what people should be thinking about. So right now, I appreciate it. We were working with our Assistant State Attorney, Crystal Bruzzo. He's doing an outstanding job for us. He's presenting a warrant for first-degree misdemeanor of assault for Drew Bretnall. And when you look at why first-degree misdemeanor, he created a well-founded fear. The victim had a well-founded fear that harm was imminent. See that little girl run across the street not knowing who's chasing her? I can tell you that fear was there. For the juvenile right now, they're working on filing information to present to the judge to get a pickup order. So those will be going through today and tomorrow. And there's going to be consequences. And I thank our State Attorney, Crystal Bruzzo, for working on this with us. And, I get people are going to go out there and say, this is, a young, these are teenagers, an 18-year-old, he's an adult. You got people sleeping in the sand in Iraq and Afghanistan who are putting their lives on the line. You got this one out here terrorizing a little girl. It's not going to be tolerated here. So that's where we are on that case right now. I can tell you, we're still going to have extra patrols out there, unmarked units riding around, because as I get into the next story too, you're going to start hearing things that, words have meaning. And it really comes down to parents and what they think. And it also has to be concerned for our children out there. So before we get into the next one, is there any questions I can answer on this?
You said you're working with the state attorney right now to get those charges.
Yes.
Against.
Yeah. The first one, he's getting the first degree. He's working, going to present to the judge for the warrant for the first degree misdemeanor on Drew Bretnall.
Are you working on charges for the juveniles as well?
The one juvenile, yes, we are. And unfortunately, with the juveniles, it's a little longer of a process, so they're working with the judges to get information to file on that.
Are you pursuing the same charge?
Yes.
What is the range of consequences for that first-degree misdemeanor? Are you aware of what that might entail?
Misdemeanor is less than a year in jail, but at the same time, it's going to be something with the state attorney. They're going to have to work out with the judges and go through the system.
Have you seen the video that he was shooting?
I never saw his video, and the investigators probably have a hold of it.
Sheriff, you sound angry.
Yeah.
We've obviously talked with you a lot about a lot of different things, but I can hear in your voice that you're angry about this.
Yeah, I'm angry. It's disturbing. I mean, I think anybody who sees this, anybody who, as a parent, grandparent, have nieces, nephews, if you just care about people. I mean, that's the thing. Unfortunately, society, you're going to see it in other things that we're going to talk about today. People are they're failing to care about other people. They're failing to care about how their actions affect other people. So you have an adult, he's 18 years old. He's 18-year-old adult, and he thought this is going to be something funny to tape his buddy, chasing a little 9-year-old girl across the street. I mean, anybody who has little kids or cares about little kids, it is disturbing. And that's why it's not going to be tolerated. The rest of the sheriff's office, we're not going to just say, oh, it was just a prank. Because you know what? What if this prank went a little bit further? You have to pursue and make sure that there's consequences, because you have to send a loud message out there. It's not going to be tolerated.
I asked about the video because were they taunting her in it? They were yelling at her?
You see the video that he has, which some of you, the video, which I'm sure some of you have seen, it's been out. He shared it with people. We have a copy of that from his cell phone. It basically has a similar version, but it's a different perspective. As you can see, when he's walking in the back holding his phone, he's actually videotaping. So you have the angle of him just running towards her. And when you watch that video, it's pretty much the same thing. She's run off, and he's filming, and the 17-year-old is running after her in that lean forward position that references that game that they had mentioned. But you could hear there's volume on that, there's sound, so you could hear that they think it's funny, that they're laughing, and they think it's funny that they've just scared the hell out of this little girl.
Do you hear her say anything?
No, you
Just
can't
leaving
hear her.
her?
She's just running away.
Was there any weapons found on these two gentlemen?
No, they didn't have any weapons on them when we found them, but obviously that was well after the incident.
The initial press release had said that they were attempting to coax her to get into the car when they went back by her house. Is that still the case, or is this some different information?
There is the story that the victim described to us, and she was a very, very smart, very forthcoming little girl. She was terrified from this incident. She described it to us well. I know a lot of you saw the composite. We had a sketch artist come out that night and do a composite with her. She did a great job with the composite, and we were able to validate and verify and corroborate everything she said through neighbors and video for the first part of it, but there is no evidence to substantiate the second part of the crime where they drove by in a vehicle. So we don't know if, due to her state of mind, somebody else drove by and said something, because she had been running and banging on the neighbor's door for help. So we don't know if maybe somebody else came by and she was in such a state of fear that she imagined it. I don't believe that she intentionally made up any part of the story, but we were not able to verify that the second part of the incident occurred. And based on the second part of the incident and the video from the subjects involved and the statements from them, we did believe at that point in time that this was not an actual act where they were trying to abduct her. However, they clearly did actions. They're speaking now to us when they talk to us and when they talk to the media. Oh, this is just a big misunderstanding. It was just a joke, like big deal. And one of them was even saying, oh, now I'm having people bother me on Facebook, like he's the victim, poor him. But the bottom line is, even if they weren't attempting to abduct her, those were actions that they intentionally did that made that 9-year-old think they were trying to abduct her. And to me, that's not funny. Like you said, the sheriff seemed angry about it. The fear, if you had spoken to that child, like my investigators did, the terror on her thinking that she was going to be abducted, there's nothing funny about that. Nothing funny at all.
Sheriff, do you, I guess speaking to that neighborhood, you said that you're going to continue the patrols in that gated community and in that area, if I understand you correctly. But as far as any kind of specific remaining threat, you're not still necessarily looking for anyone? Can you talk to the people in that area?
No, I mean, there's no threat out there right now. A lot of times just having a cruiser go through the neighborhood is comforting. It's kind of like a safety blanket. You know, people like seeing cruisers around. And, you know, just for the fact that, you know, this little girl, for her to see a cruiser, it's worth setting it by her house a couple times so she sees it. If it's one little girl that we make feel better because two morons acted the way they did and may have changed her life, so be it. We'll have them go by. We'll have cruisers go through. Because we can't forget about the victim, and especially when you're talking about a 9-year-old little girl who was just doing what any 9-year-old little girl walking home. You know, it's, yeah, angry, yeah, that's an understatement. If I probably portrayed my anger a little bit, there's a lot more inside that hasn't come out.
When I spoke to him yesterday, he was under the impression that he'd been completely cleared from this. It sounds like he got some misinformation or just...
He's a delusional adult. He's an absolute delusional adult. He's delusional in the fact that he thought this was funny. He's delusional in the fact that he thought there wasn't going to be consequences. Maybe he'll have a little scared straight when he walks inside the Pasco Sheriff's Office jail.